Bryan Mbeumo had a pretty good season at Manchester United.
Gives quality. Do you know, I think he reminds me a little bit of Mo Salah in and around the box. When he gets it, he has a clear picture of exactly what he wants, whether the finish near post or back post. He almost shows like no emotion. It's just like business.
After arriving from Brentford for £65 million, the Cameroonian quickly showed why United were willing to spend that much on him.
Meanwhile, Diogo Dalot into the penalty area. He's going to try and get across the way to Mbeumo! Manchester United retake the lead!
He was direct, dangerous, and for large parts of the season, one of the most reliable attacking outlets in the team.
Bryan Mbeumo, again, like he has the inevitable celebration now.
In Bryan Mbeumo, we've got one of the best players in the Premier League.
But then, after returning from AFCON, something changed. Mbeumo's goal-scoring output dropped dramatically, and he went 11 games without finding the back of the net. It wasn't exactly the ending United fans would have wanted, although he eventually finished the campaign with goals in consecutive games against Nottingham Forest and Brighton.
Bruno Fernandes takes a touch, gets the cross in. Turned home! Bruno Fernandes equals the assist record! Bryan Mbeumo into double figures, and Manchester United lead!
There was still a question hanging over him heading into the summer. Was this simply a dip in form, or had teams started figuring him out? Because now, just a few months later, we're seeing a completely different Mbeumo. This time, he has had a full pre-season with Manchester United, and he looks sharper, more confident, and far more dangerous than he did at this stage last summer. Against PSG, he scored. Against Atletico Madrid, he scored twice, and against Leeds, he produced another impressive performance, this time playing through the middle as United's number 9, linking up brilliantly with Joshua Zirkzee and providing the assist for United's open play goal. That's 3 goals and an assist in his last 3 games. And perhaps even more importantly, Mbeumo doesn't look like a player trying to catch up anymore. He looks ready. Ready for the Premier League. Ready for a second season at Old Trafford. And there is another reason why this version of Mbeumo could be even more dangerous. Last season, outside of Bruno Fernandes and a few others, United didn't always have enough players capable of consistently finding him with the right pass. But now, Mbeumo could have Andre Santos breaking lines from midfield, Tielemans creating chances, Zirkzee providing another creative option if he stays and finds his form, while Cunha, Rashford and his growing connection with Ahmad give him even more players capable of putting the ball into dangerous areas. In other words, Mbeumo may not just be returning sharper, he could be returning to an attack that gives him far more opportunities to do what he does best. And if this pre-season is anything to go by, Manchester United may be about to see a completely different version of Bryan Mbeumo. But before we get into what Mbeumo could become this season, we need to understand what happened to him last season and why his form changed so dramatically after AFCON.
If there was one thing Bryan Mbeumo did almost immediately after arriving at Manchester United, it was convince the fans that the club had made the right decision. The French-born attacker, who represents Cameroon internationally, hit the ground running. He opened his United account against Grimsby Town in the Carabao Cup before finding the net again in the Premier League and earning Manchester United's Player of the Month award for August after scoring in league wins over Fulham and Burnley. By October, Mbeumo was doing something even more impressive. He scored 3 goals and provided an assist across 3 consecutive Premier League victories, including the opening goal in United's 2-1 win at Anfield, their first league victory there in years.
Left to right, Ahmad into the penalty area. Bryan Mbeumo with the chance and scores for Manchester United! What a start!
Before returning to Old Trafford the following weekend and scoring twice against Brighton. That run earned him his second Manchester United Player of the Month award, as well as his first Premier League Player of the Month award. And suddenly, the £65 million United had spent on him didn't look quite so crazy. Mbeumo had arrived as a winger who could score goals, create chances, and stretch defenses, but he was quickly becoming much more than that. He looked comfortable attacking from the right, dangerous when driving towards goal, and increasingly capable of deciding games himself. By the end of the season, Mbeumo had scored 12 goals in all competitions, level with Benjamin Sesko as United's joint top scorer. So, on paper, it was a very good debut season. But there was one problem. The Mbeumo who finished the season wasn't quite the same Mbeumo who had started it. After returning from AFCON, his goals dried up. The confidence and explosiveness that had made him such a threat earlier in the campaign seemed to disappear for stretches. To his credit, he did eventually find his way back onto the scoresheet, scoring in consecutive games against Nottingham Forest and Brighton to finish the campaign. But that late-season dip left United with an interesting question going into the summer. Had they simply seen the normal inconsistency of a player adapting to a new club, or was there another version of Bryan Mbeumo waiting to be unlocked? Because that is what makes this pre-season so interesting. Mbeumo isn't simply scoring goals again. He looks sharper, he looks more confident, and perhaps most importantly, he is being used in ways that could reveal a completely different side to his game. And that brings us to the biggest question surrounding Bryan Mbeumo heading into this new season. Where is he actually most dangerous?
Across the 3 pre-season games against Atletico Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain and Leeds, Mbeumo has been used through the middle as the centre-forward. And this isn't completely new. Remember how last season ended? Mbeumo started the final 2 Premier League games against Nottingham Forest and Brighton as a centre-forward and scored in both. Then there are some of his biggest moments of the season. Against Manchester City, Mbeumo was at the heart of United's 2-0 derby victory, scoring the opening goal. And against Arsenal, he was again able to make his presence felt from a more central attacking position, getting on the scoresheet in a dramatic game. So when you put all of that together, it becomes difficult to dismiss the idea that Mbeumo might actually have another level to his game when he moves inside. And there is a pretty simple reason for that. When Mbeumo plays on the right wing, he has to start the attack from the outside. He has to receive the ball, isolate the fullback, beat his man or cut inside before he can really threaten the goal. But when he plays as a centre-forward, he starts much closer to where he ultimately wants to be. His pace can be used against centre-backs. His movement can pull defenders away from their positions, and instead of constantly having to create the advantage himself from the right wing, he can spend more time attacking the spaces that other players create for him. And we've already seen how dangerous that can be. But there is a problem. Mbeumo might be a very good centre-forward. He might even be a more dangerous goal scorer from there. But that doesn't necessarily mean he can give Manchester United everything they need from their number 9. Because against the team that sits deep, Mbeumo isn't necessarily the player you want as your main focal point. And this is where Benjamin Sesko becomes so important. Sesko gives United something completely different. He's a much more natural reference point for the attack. He can occupy both centre-backs, compete for crosses, hold the ball up, receive with his back to goal, and give United an actual target to play into when there is very little space behind the defence. Mbeumo, on the other hand, is at his most dangerous when the game gives him something to attack: space, movement, transitions, defenders stepping forward. That's when his pace and explosiveness become devastating. And this is why I don't think the answer is simply to say Mbeumo should play centre-forward, because Mbeumo is still an excellent right winger. From the right, he can stretch the pitch, attack fullbacks, cut inside and create opportunities in ways that a traditional centre-forward simply can't. The real advantage for Manchester United is that they now have both options. They can use Sesko when they need a focal point. They can use Mbeumo centrally when they want pace, movement and unpredictability. And they can still put Mbeumo on the right when that is where the matchup is most favourable. And if Carrick can get that decision right, Mbeumo doesn't just become another attacking option, he becomes one of the most flexible weapons in this Manchester United attack. And judging by what we've seen this pre-season, Carrick may already be figuring out how to use him.
So what should we actually expect from Bryan Mbeumo this season? Well, the signs are certainly encouraging. He has had a full pre-season this time around, unlike last summer when his late arrival meant he was playing catch-up for weeks. He's already looking sharp, he's already scoring, and more importantly, Carrick now has a better idea of how to use him, whether that's from the right wing, where Mbeumo has already proven how dangerous he can be, or through the middle as a centre-forward, where some of his best moments have come. United now have a player who can give them different problems for different opponents, and that should mean more goals and assists. Mbeumo finished last season with 12 goals in all competitions, despite that long spell without scoring after AFCON. If he can stay fit, maintain his current level and avoid another extended dip in form, there is every reason to expect him to improve on that number this season. But for me, the biggest thing isn't actually the number of goals he scores, it's consistency. Because we've already seen that Mbeumo can produce, we've seen him score important goals, we've seen him perform against big opponents, and we've now seen that he can cause problems from more than one position. The next step is doing it consistently from August all the way through to May. And then there's the relationship with Benjamin Šeško, because rather than seeing the two as players fighting for the same position, United could potentially have two forwards who complement each other. So perhaps Mbeumo 2.0 isn't simply a player who scores more goals, it's a player who understands the game better, can be used in more ways, and gives Manchester United another attacking dimension depending on the opponent. If this version of Bryan Mbeumo can stay consistent, there's a very good chance we see a much bigger number this time around. And maybe that's what makes this season so exciting, because Manchester United aren't waiting to find out whether Mbeumo can be a good player for them. They already know he can. They're now trying to find out just how good he can actually become. And after everything we've seen this pre-season, maybe the Premier League really isn't ready for Mbeumo 2.0.